What a big up. I like that, because the other person that was at that networking event in Swindon, who I made sure I got a selfie with, was Eddie the Eagle. And true story, I was a little bit awestruck by Eddie the Eagle, because when I was growing up, he'd been a bit of a legend. So the fact that you asked me for a selfie the same night is quite a thing. My name's Stefan. I am the author of Business Networking for Dummies, and a couple of other books as well. I train people how to make more sales from networking events. I train people how to stand up and speak, because this is my actual job. This is what I do for a living these days. My parents are also thinking, when am I going to get a proper job? I was expecting a better laugh for that, but I'll big it up better in future. I talk to people and help people sell more from networking events. Networking is not just about sales. The vast majority of the value that I've got from the over 1,500 networking events that I've been to in the last 15 years or so. Yeah, I know, people saying that, how do I stay so slim? I know. Yeah, better laugh for that one as well. The biggest value that I've had from networking is the support, the relationships, the referrals, but the sales are important. Most people start going to networking because they think they're going to start to make more sales there. And as it happens, it's worked for me in quite a big way. Went to my very first networking event in 2005. I was still an estate agent at that point. The screen keeps doing that, Angela. I don't know if you're spotting it, if someone wouldn't mind. Yeah, there you go. Am I turning it off? If I'm turning it off, then tell me what I'm doing. This is going well. Went to my first networking event in 2005 when I was still an estate agent. That was my career, 1988 to 2007. This is what I do now. Networking's worked pretty well. One of the reasons that I believe I'm qualified to help people get more out of it is that every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. I've been lucky enough to work for people like BT, Utility Warehouse, Lloyds Banking Group, Oxford Brookes University. Every single one of those jobs, of those contracts, of those roles has come from a conversation that I've started either at a networking event just like this, or somewhere on social media. And I've been quoted in the Eye, the Telegraph, the Guardian, HuffPost, talking about networking as well from similar conversations, and aided these days by the wonderful Fiona. So was thinking, why do I still come along to networking events? 1,500 networking events I've been to. Sharon, my wife, and I have been to a meeting in Malmesbury this morning. We live in Witney in Oxfordshire, drove to Malmesbury, came up here. The person that I had a meeting with in Malmesbury is sat right in front of me. Why didn't we meet here? We should have thought that through a little bit better, quite possibly. But why do I still do it? Why do I still drive to networking events? Because all of these opportunities have come from a networking conversation somewhere. And I'm going to spend the next 12, 13 minutes, something like that, just giving you some insight into what I might have done differently, what you might be able to do differently as well, and how I've turned those little conversations into big opportunities along the way. Let's see if I can do it this time and not break it. Outside of networking, outside of talking about networking, this is who I am. I'm Stefan. I got married to Sharon just over 2 years ago. Sharon's floating around somewhere trying not to get me to pay attention to or point her out. Sharon and I got married 2 years ago. We've got 5 kids between us. Joe and Fran and George and Miles and Patch. Joe and George and Patch are mine as such. And outside of doing this, outside of standing up in front of people and speaking, I go to a bit too many punk and rock gigs for a 53-year-old, frankly. Done hundreds and hundreds of them over the years. Is anyone else in the room familiar with Dropkick Murphys? Yeah. Okay, I'm impressed. Okay, there's one or two around the room. Someone at the back really into Dropkick Murphys. Sorry, this was me at the Dropkick Murphys gig literally just before lockdown at Alexandra Palace in London. So that's the big love of my life. Speaking in front of people and pretending I'm a rock star and then going to rock gigs as well. This is where it all started for me. This is about 1985. I started work in Manfield Shoes in Cornmarket Street in Oxford. That was my first ever job. And it's the skills that I learned there that I'm still putting into practice in networking today. Because in the gents department of Manfield Shoes in Cornmarket Street in Oxford, we had about 20 minutes to build rapport with people. After someone came into the department, we had about 20 minutes to build that relationship with them to the extent that at the end of it, they trusted us enough to take our recommendation to buy some Scotchgard from us. If you've ever wondered why people work in shoe shops, it's to flog you Scotchgard. Sorry if that was a... But that was the thing. It was very transactional. It was our job to build the relationship to the extent that people would buy Scotchgard. The person that sold the most Scotchgard on a Saturday got to go home half an hour early. True story. We finished at 6. My bus went on every hour at 39 minutes past the hour. So if I finished at 6, as a teenager with a social life, I would get the 20 to 7 bus. If I sold the most Scotchgard, I would get the 5:30 bus, run down to the bus station, get the bus 9 minutes later, be home a full hour earlier. So I learned to build rapport with people. I learned to sell a lot of Scotchgard, so I got to go home and hang around on street corners and smoke and do the things that you did as a 15-year-old. When we talk about in networking now, we talk about the know, like, and trust, or the meet, like, know, trust, depending on which flavour of networking you go to. That process, after you've met someone, when you start to decide whether you like them, you get to know them, and then you decide whether you trust them enough to do business with them or refer business to them. We talked about it as building rapport back in the 1980s. In networking, we talk about the know, like, trust. A couple of great bits of news. Not everyone's going to like you along the way, so stop trying so hard to make everyone. I stopped that a few years ago. But building that rapport, building that trust is important, because that's when people are going to refer to you. That's when people are going to refer business to you. Another important point about that is that trust isn't a light switch. It takes a little bit of trust for someone to spend 3 minutes reading a bit of free content on LinkedIn from me. It takes a little bit of trust to spend a tenner on a book from Amazon. It takes a lot of trust for someone to put me on stage at their annual conference where they only get one chance a year to impress their staff or their members or whatever it happens to be. So this building trust, 20 minutes to sell a tin of Scotchgard, that was one thing. Building the trust so that someone trusts you with their business finances, their business utilities, their coaching, their PR, whatever it happens to be, that takes a degree extra. So we need to put the effort into it. Angela's already mentioned it. Putting the effort into building these relationships is where so many people go wrong. So many people expect that they'll turn up at a networking event and it's a bit like a business delivery machine. You know, I sell something, people in the room need to buy something, they'll buy it from me. It doesn't work quite like that. Every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. There's at least one person, Jason in the room, who might recognise this conversation, because I've talked about it before. 2013, I started a conversation on Twitter, now X, with a guy called Wes Linden. We got talking about postcards. My grandmother, who is very much alive, doesn't do social media, so I was doing it in 2013, still to this day. I send my grandmother a postcard at least once a week with photos of where me and Sharon are, what we're up to and that sort of thing. I use an app called TouchNote to do it. Got chatting to Wes Linden on Twitter about this app called TouchNote. We met, we became friends. Wes gave me my biggest ever speaking gig, 2,500 people at the Swan High Wycombe at his annual kickoff event. And we went to go on to write a book together. Every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. One of the things that people do is try too hard to shoehorn the business side of the conversation in there. You don't have to do it. Allow little conversations to start at events just like this. You've got plenty of time for people to work out what you do, to work out whether they want to buy from you, and so on. Started a similar conversation. I actually insulted the lead singer of Doctor and the Medics, Dr. Clive. Anyone remember Doctor and the Medics? Yeah, I insulted him on Twitter back in 2014, I think, 2013. We got chatting, and this year Doctor and the Medics became a client of mine. And I handle a lot of their marketing and social media for them now. Every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. When you come to events like this, use this as the start of the conversation. So many people try and treat networking events as the whole of the conversation and try and squeeze everything in and think that doesn't work and try and squeeze everything in, like I'm going to get to know you, I'm going to talk to you, and by the end of it, I'll invite you to buy from me. It's not how relationships work. When we put the networking label over it, we automatically complicate it, confuse it. This is just about conversations. When you go to some of Angela's regular events, and you do get to do an introduction, a 60-second or 30-second or whatever it happens to be, think about why everyone else in the room attended that evening. When you came here this evening, whose business did you come here for the sake of? Yeah, okay. I've done that question so many times, and there is always that 1 second delay when people are thinking, is he being clever? Is he going to talk about referrals, looking after other people in the room? But you turned out this evening for the sake of your business. So when we stand up and do our introduction, or when we start talking to people at events, why have we all been trained to do this thing when we talk about the thing that's only actually of interest to one person in the room? Use the networking event as the start of the conversation. If you do a 30 or 40 or 60-second introduction, use that to start conversations with people, not to tell people everything about your business. Think about what the people in the room are there for. Think about what they're buying. Give people an opportunity to keep the conversation going with you, rather than tell them everything about what you do and leave them with nowhere to go. They don't need to ask you anything else. If you're using social media, which you should be, I mentioned LinkedIn here, same applies to Instagram, Facebook, Threads, if you're not on Threads already, and Twitter, as I've talked about. Every post on LinkedIn and everywhere else is a mini networking event that you're invited to. Whenever anyone asks me about social media, they always want to know what they should post, and they're asking the wrong question. Think about as well why other people turn up on social media, why other people turn up on LinkedIn. Think about that Livia told me that the light was much better if I stood this side of the screen, and she would get much better photos. If you're wondering why I'm wandering about over here, I'm being obedient to our wonderful photographer. One of the ways that I use LinkedIn, Threads, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it happens to be, I go and find people who are talking about my subjects and get involved in their conversations. I've won actual business from doing that, or getting in conversations about postcards, for heaven's sake. Go and get involved in other people's conversations. Every post of someone else's is a mini networking event that you're invited to. People ask me if it's weird, because I get involved in conversations that strangers have started. When you make a post on LinkedIn, how delighted are you when someone else comes and likes it? Yeah, so it's not weird. You're absolutely thrilled if some random comes along and starts commenting on it. Best book that was ever written about social media was written in 1937 by a guy called Dale Carnegie. And what Dale Carnegie says in that book is that you'll win more friends in 2 months by being genuinely interested in them than you will in 2 years by trying to be interesting to them. Be interested in other people, not as a transactional thing. That's how I started in a shoe shop. Pretend to be interested, flog you some Scotchgard. Ask you how your day's going, make friends with you. It's not as a transactional thing. We've all come on a long way since then. Be genuinely interested in other people. Go out and find out about other people. People love to talk about themselves. This is just the start of the conversation. You've got plenty of opportunities to keep the conversation going. I've learned a lot from this guy over the years, a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, who talks a lot about social media. One of the things that Gary says is that you can become the authority of content. So if I've paid a lot of attention to other people, one of the other things that I do is put a load of what I hope is really helpful content about networking out there. Because It's a really simple equation. If I'm the person who is talking about business networking, about how to get paid speaking gigs, about the other things that I talk about, if I talk about them more than anyone else, I become the authority of content. I got to speak for the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. I've told at least one person this story already. I didn't meet them until I turned up for the gig. I'd been paid. I turned up for their conference. I asked them why they chose me, because they'd been recommended other speakers, and they said, because we felt like we already knew you. The volume of content that I'd put out, written, video, and so on, they felt like they already knew me. How much does that build up the trust? If you feel like you know someone. Before putting me on stage at their event, they'd seen videos of me speaking at events. We're videoing this one. So I come here, I speak. We also get to put this out as part of my social media as well. So they'd seen that I was competent in doing what they were going to pay me to do, but I also do quite a lot of videos just talking directly to my phone. So they felt like they already knew me. I became the authority on the subject that they wanted to pay someone to come and talk about. It worked for me. I put a load of stuff out there. For example, the exact template that I use to write people's 60 seconds, I put it out there for free. Because it's not the information that's valuable. If I'm not putting it out there, someone else will. It's getting me to speak, the access to me, whatever that happens to be that is valuable. If you're not becoming the authority of content, if you're not following up your networking by keeping in touch with people on social media, by talking about what you do, then someone else who does what you do probably is. And probably is becoming the go-to person, the authority on that subject. When you come along to networking events, Angela mentioned this earlier, every big opportunity starts with a little conversation, but then once you've started the conversation, effort is currency. People ask me, how long does it take after you've met someone before they're ready to buy from you? And it's not about time, it's about immersion. If I come here one time and I don't connect with any of you on social media, and I come back here again in a year's time, none of you are going to really know me and know who I am. If I put effort into keeping in touch with people, into keeping in touch with people on social media, in coming along to networking events and actually seeing people eyeball to eyeball regularly, in getting to know you, then that effort has become currency. It's not about the time, it's about the immersion. You'll have had more exposure to me. You'll decide, because it's your decision, not mine, whether you like me and whether you trust me. But I'll give you more opportunities to do that through the face-to-face interactions, through the interactions on social media as well. But the final thing, almost the final thing, which I'll leave you with, because particularly in England, we get a bit icky about this. Lots of people put plenty of effort into building the relationships, into doing everything else, and we forget to show people where the till is. What do you think was the very last thing that we did on the way out of the shoe shop? We made sure that people went by the till on their way out. If you go into any fashion retailer, I know this is Boots, but it was a good picture. If you go into any fashion retailer, somewhere up on the ceiling it says, please pay here. Do, particularly if you're a small business, make it super simple for people to see how they can buy from you. Make it super simple for people to buy from you as well. It is the bit that particularly English people get very icky about and forget to show people the till. And it's often actually the missing link for a lot of people. They're doing everything else and forgetting to do that last bit. And this isn't just about one time. Picking up on what Angela said earlier on, it's about coming along regularly. Are you all familiar with DFS, the furniture store? When does their sale end? Right, okay. So you all know that DFS sells sofas though, right? Yeah? You all know that DFS sells sofas. You all know that they've got a sale on and that they do interest-free credit. So on the basis that everyone in the room always knows that, why on earth will DFS be advertising those facts on television later on tonight? I don't know if Married at First Sight has started again, but they will be on the ad break. I don't pay attention to these things, as Sharon knows, honestly. I don't sit there and pretend that I'm doing something else but watch it out of the corner of my eye. But why are they advertising tonight? Because it's not good enough for you to know that they sell sofas. They want to be telling you that they sell sofas at the moment that you think about buying a sofa. I may love your business, but I don't need it, don't have the funds for it right now. But in 3 months' time I do. So where do you want to be? Do you want to be invisible to me and there's someone else in the room who does the same as you? Or would you prefer to be visible to your potential customers? This is why I turn up to networking events and I turn up on social media every single day. DFS advertise on telly because they need to be there when you think about buying a sofa. Your business needs to be there when your potential customers want to buy what you've got for sale. When you've been here tonight, look at what does this make possible. People come to networking events, go home, expect something to happen. Think about what you can do with an opportunity like this, coming along to networking events, meeting potential new collaborators, suppliers, customers. What does this make possible to you? Because the real opportunity is that most people don't bother. Big secret, I wasn't the best networking speaker. I wasn't the best person at training people about networking, but I was the person who put myself out there more and more and more when other people came to a couple of networking events and thought, that doesn't work, I'm going to stay at home. So I got better and better at it, because the real opportunity is that most people don't bother. The people in the room who I am seeing now, who I've seen at networking events for years and years, are more successful at networking than the people who've just stayed at home and turned up once a year. The real opportunity is that most people don't bother to do the stuff that we've talked about. I've been to over 1,500 networking events along the way, and I've spoken at literally hundreds. If you've liked what I've had to say tonight, do connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very open to connections on LinkedIn. I put a ton of free content out there, talking about networking, talking about speaking as a career as well. So do feel free to connect with me. There's my QR code up there. I've also got a slightly unusual name, so it makes me quite easy to find on LinkedIn. One of the things that I was always told in sales and in relationships is that you only get one chance to make an impression. What I've absolutely fallen in love with about networking over the years is that this was a chance where I got a second chance, or even these days a 1,500th chance to make an impression. Thank you all very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stefan. That was really, really good. I think we can all agree. And just a little something. Thank you so much for being our speaker. You've been a star. Thank you. And Phil, thank you so much. That was brilliant. And I'd like to hear Stefan speak for longer. I know he does courses and workshops and things like that. So maybe we'll do a workshop one day with you, and that'd be brilliant.